All right, ready to dive deep.
Ready?
Today, we're looking at one of the most crucial balancing acts our bodies pull off every single second. How we stop ourselves from turning into one giant blood clot.
Yeah, seriously.
We're using Dr. Rasha Eldeeb's Physiology handout today.
Okay.
And trust me, you'll be amazed by what we uncover.
I bet.
Like, did you know your liver is basically a clotting control center?
It's true.
Huh.
It really is. We take it for granted, but this whole system, this intricate system of checks and balances, it's what allows us to, function normally.
Totally. It's like our bodies are constantly on the brink of a clotting disaster.
Yeah.
But somehow we manage to avoid it.
Right.
So let's investigate the clues and understand how this whole anti-clotting system works.
Okay.
Dr. Eldeeb mentions 5 key factors that keep things running smoothly inside our blood vessels.
So first up is the endothelium.
Endothelium.
Yeah, the inner lining of your blood vessels. Think of it like a non-stick pan, but like 1,000 times smoother.
Wow.
This super slick surface, it keeps the blood flowing effortlessly.
Right.
And prevents those sticky clotting factors from latching on.
Ah, so it's like a superhighway for our blood cells.
Yeah.
No traffic jams allowed.
Exactly.
But what I don't get is, if it's so smooth, how do clots ever form when we need them?
Right?
Like when we get a cut?
That's a great question. So the smoothness, it's just one part of the equation.
Okay.
You also need a certain amount of those clotting factors to build up in one spot to actually trigger the whole process.
Oh.
And that brings us to factor number 2, rapid blood flow.
Okay, I can see how speed matters.
Yeah.
A fast-flowing river, it's less likely to have, debris piling up.
Right.
So fast-moving blood keeps those clotting factors from hanging around too long in one place.
Exactly.
But it's not just about speed, is it?
No, it's not.
There must be something actively stopping those factors from doing their job.
You're right. Again, it's not just about keeping them separated. There are specific molecules that actually inhibit them.
Okay.
Think of them as like the clotting police.
Clotting police, I like it.
Their main weapon is a molecule called heparin.
Heparin, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Isn't that something doctors use during surgery?
Exactly. Heparin is naturally occurring.
Wow.
It's an anticoagulant. And it works by supercharging a protein called antithrombin the third.
Antithrombin the third.
Yeah, together they act like bouncers at a clotting party.
Okay.
Preventing things from, getting out of control.
Right.
This is one of the key reasons why doctors can safely perform surgeries.
Oh, that makes sense.
Without worrying about excessive clotting.
So we've got the smooth endothelium, rapid blood flow, and this heparin antithrombin the third duo.
Yeah.
Keeping those clotting factors in check. What about the other 2 factors that Dr. Eldeeb mentions?
Well, the 4th one is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
Most clotting factors just circulate in our blood.
Okay.
They're inactive forms. They're like ingredients stored separately.
Right.
Only activated when and where a clot is actually needed.
Oh, that's interesting.
This prevents them from, spontaneously triggering clotting throughout the body.
That's a pretty neat safety mechanism.
Yeah.
It's like having a fire extinguisher that only activates when it, detects a flame.
Right.
But even with all these safeguards, I imagine some tiny clots must still form occasionally.
You're absolutely right.
Huh?
And that's where the 5th factor comes in.
Okay.
The fibrinolytic system.
The fibrinolytic system.
Think of it as like a microscopic cleanup crew.
Okay.
Constantly patrolling your blood vessels, dissolving those tiny clots.
Wait, so our bodies are constantly forming and dissolving tiny clots?
Precisely.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's like a never-ending battle between clotting and anti-clotting forces.
Wow, that's incredible.
And this constant tug of war.
Right.
It's essential for maintaining that healthy balance.
Okay.
This fibrinolytic system is pretty fascinating in itself.
I bet.
Would you like to dive a little deeper?
Absolutely. This fibrinolytic system, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of is.
Break it down for me. Break it down for me.
Okay, so imagine this. There's this inactive protein called plasminogen.
Plasminogen.
Just circulating in your blood, waiting for its moment to shine.
Okay.
Like a demolition expert on standby.
Okay, so plasminogen is the key player here.
Yeah.
But it's inactive.
Right.
So how does it actually get triggered to do its job?
That's where things get really cool.
Yeah.
When a clot forms,
the
injured tissue, it releases a signal flare called tissue plasminogen activator.
Tissue plasminogen activator.
Or TPA for short.
TPA.
Think of TPA as the 911 call.
That alerts our demolition expert.
So TPA activates plasminogen,
Yes.
turning it into
Plasmin.
plasmin.
And plasmin is like a tiny Pac-Man
Uh-huh.
gobbling up the fibrin
Right.
that makes up the scaffolding of a blood clot.
So it basically dissolves the clot
Yeah.
from the inside out.
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing. But wouldn't that be dangerous
Hmm.
if it just kept dissolving every clot in sight?
Yeah, good point.
What's to stop it from, going overboard?
That's where another key player comes in.
Okay.
Antiplasmin.
Antiplasmin.
It acts like a regulator,
Okay.
making sure plasmin doesn't get too carried away.
Gotcha.
It's like a safety switch
All right.
that prevents the demolition crew from, destroying healthy tissue.
So it's a delicate balance
Yes.
between breaking down clots we don't need
Right.
and preserving the ones that are essential for stopping bleeding.
Exactly.
It really is an incredible system.
It is.
But Dr. Eldeeb also mentions thrombomodulin.
And a connection to vitamin K in your handout.
Okay.
How do they fit into this whole clotting puzzle?
This is where things get even more fascinating.
Okay.
So thrombomodulin,
Yeah.
it's like a double agent
Oh.
in the world of clotting.
A double agent, huh?
It's a protein
Okay.
found on the surface of most blood vessel cells,
Right.
and it actually binds to thrombin,
Thrombin.
which is one of the main clotting factors.
Wait, so a clotting factor helps prevent clotting?
I know, right?
That sounds like a total contradiction.
It's pretty ingenious.
Okay.
When thrombomodulin latches onto thrombin,
Yeah.
it basically transforms it
Okay.
into an anticoagulant.
So it's like turning a villain
Yeah,
into a superhero.
exactly.
Okay, so thrombomodulin turns thrombin into a good guy.
Right.
But how does that actually stop clotting from happening?
Well, this thrombomodulin thrombin complex,
Yeah.
it activates another protein
Okay.
called protein C.
Protein C.
And protein C, along with its sidekick, protein S, acts as a clotting factor inhibitor.
So it's like a chain reaction
Right.
where one protein activates another,
Yeah,
which then shuts down other clotting factors.
exactly. It's a brilliant system
Wow.
of checks and balances.
Checks and balances.
And here's where vitamin K comes in.
Okay.
It's crucial for producing both protein C and protein S.
So vitamin K isn't just for strong bones.
No.
It's also a key player
Yeah.
in preventing us from turning into walking blood clots.
Exactly.
This whole system is mind-blowing.
It really is.
But remember,
Yeah.
we've been focusing on how the body prevents clots
Uh-huh.
inside blood vessels.
Right.
Dr. Eldeeb also talks about how we can control clotting
Yes.
outside the body.
Right, like in medical settings.
Oh, right, like when they draw blood for tests.
Exactly.
How do they keep that blood from clotting in the tube?
There are a few different methods.
Okay.
One common one is using decalcifying agents.
Decalcifying agents?
Yeah, these are chemicals
Okay.
that bind to calcium, which is essential for the clotting process
Okay.
by removing calcium from the equation.
Yeah.
They essentially disable the clotting mechanism.
So it's like taking out a crucial ingredient
Uh-huh.
in a recipe.
Right.
No calcium, no clot.
Exactly.
What other methods are there?
Another technique is
Yeah.
called defibrillation.
Defibrillation.
It involves physically removing clotting factors from
Oh.
the blood.
Oh, wow.
Imagine it like skimming the cream off the top of milk.
Ah.
You're taking out the key components
No.
that trigger clotting.
Interesting. So they're basically manipulating the ingredients
Yeah,
to prevent the final product,
right.
the
Well,
clot, from forming.
precisely. And there's one more trick up their sleeve.
Okay.
Specialized containers.
Specialized containers.
They use containers with non-wettable surfaces
Okay.
that prevent unwanted clot formation.
So the blood doesn't, spread out
Exactly.
and activate
Yeah.
those clotting factors.
Right. So it's about minimizing contact activation.
Yeah.
Making it harder for those clotting factors to do their job.
Precisely. Now, those are all methods for controlling clotting
Mm-hmm.
outside the body.
Right.
But Dr. Eldeeb also discusses methods
Yeah.
used inside the body,
Okay.
like in medical procedures
Oh, sure.
or to treat certain conditions.
Right, like blood thinners.
Got it.
Those are medications
Wait,
that
here.
help prevent clots from forming, correct?
Exactly. One well-known example is heparin,
Heparin, right?
which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Remember how it supercharges antithrombin III?
Yeah.
Well, doctors use it
Mm-hmm.
to prevent dangerous clots
Right.
in patients who are at risk for
Okay.
deep vein thrombosis,
Deep vein thrombosis.
or pulmonary embolism.
Pulmonary embolism.
Yeah,
So heparin is like a superhero both inside and outside the body.
I like that.
Are there other types of blood thinners?
Absolutely. Another common one is called warfarin
Warfarin.
or Coumadin. Coumadin.
It works by interfering with vitamin K's role in producing certain clotting factors.
Wait, so warfarin basically sabotages vitamin K's work.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a very effective way to prevent clots.
Okay.
But it requires careful monitoring.
Right.
Because it can also increase the risk of bleeding.
Oh, right, if it's not managed properly?
Yeah.
Wow, this is all incredibly complex.
It is.
But it makes you really appreciate how much we take these intricate systems for granted.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that when these finely tuned systems go wrong, it can lead to some serious health problems.
Okay.
Dr. Eldeeb highlights this in her handout.
Yeah.
By discussing various hemostatic disorders.
Right. So we've covered how the body prevents clots and how we can manipulate clotting both inside and outside the body.
Right.
But what happens when things go wrong?
Yeah.
What are the consequences of these hemostatic disorders?
Well, that's a question for part 3 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so in parts 1 and 2, we journeyed through this fascinating world of how our bodies prevent themselves from turning into one giant blood clot.
It's pretty remarkable, all these systems working together.
But we've hinted that things don't always go according to plan.
Definitely not.
So let's shift gears a bit and explore what happens when these intricate clotting and anti-clotting systems malfunction.
Okay, so when this delicate balance is disrupted, it can lead to a whole range of problems.
Okay.
From excessive bleeding to dangerous clots forming where they shouldn't.
Gotcha.
Dr. Eldeeb categorizes these issues as hemostatic disorders.
Hemostatic disorders.
And they can be quite serious.
So let's unpack these disorders a bit.
Okay.
Where should we start?
Well, one way this balance can be tipped is when blood doesn't clot efficiently enough.
Okay.
Imagine even a small cut causing prolonged bleeding or internal bleeding occurring spontaneously.
That sounds scary.
This is often due to what's called defective blood coagulation.
So in these cases, the clotting crew isn't showing up for work.
Exactly.
What causes that to happen?
Well, there are a few culprits.
Okay.
Remember how crucial vitamin K is?
Yeah, for producing those clotting factors.
Right. Well, a deficiency in this vitamin
Okay.
can significantly impair the clotting process.
It's amazing how something as simple as a vitamin deficiency can have such a dramatic impact on our health.
It really is.
But I thought vitamin K was mainly for bone health.
It is important for bones.
Yeah.
But it also plays this crucial behind-the-scenes role in clotting.
Okay.
And without enough vitamin K, those essential clotting factors just aren't produced in sufficient quantities, leading to excessive bleeding.
So it can happen due to a poor diet.
Yeah, poor diet.
Problems with fat absorption or even liver disease.
Yes, liver disease.
Which is where many clotting factors are made.
Exactly.
So it's not just about what we eat, but also how well our bodies absorb and process those nutrients.
Exactly.
Makes sense, but what about those cases where it's not a simple vitamin deficiency?
Yeah.
What else can lead to defective blood coagulation?
Well, there's another significant disorder called hemophilia.
Hemophilia.
Which you may have heard of.
Yeah, I remember learning about that in school.
It's a genetic condition passed down through families where a specific clotting factor is either missing or deficient.
And it's much more common in males.
Right, that's right. It's linked to the X chromosome.
Gotcha.
The most common form is hemophilia A.
Hemophilia A.
Where factor 8 is deficient.
Factor 8.
Now, even a minor injury can cause significant bleeding for someone with hemophilia. And in severe cases, they can experience spontaneous internal bleeding.
That's got to be rough.
Especially in joints and muscles.
That sounds incredibly challenging to live with.
It is.
What can be done to help people with hemophilia?
Fortunately, there have been significant advancements in treatment. Factor replacement therapy.
Factor replacement therapy
is the cornerstone.
Okay.
Essentially, patients receive infusions of the missing clotting factor.
So it's like giving their bodies the missing ingredient.
Exactly.
They need to make that clotting process work properly.
It's amazing how medical science can step in and essentially correct these genetic errors.
That's incredible.
It really is.
But what about the other side of the coin?
Okay.
What happens when the problem isn't too little clotting,
Right.
but too much?
That's another crucial aspect of hemostatic disorders.
Okay.
When the scales tip towards excessive clotting,
Right.
it can lead to dangerous blockages in blood vessels. Oh, wow.
Increasing the risk of strokes, heart attacks, and other serious complications.
So in these cases, the clotting crew is working overtime.
Right.
Filling clots where they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Is there a specific term for these types of disorders?
There are many specific conditions related to excessive clotting.
Right.
But a general term you might come across is thrombophilia.
Thrombophilia.
Which literally means a tendency to clot.
Okay.
It can be inherited or acquired due to various factors.
Like what?
Like prolonged immobility.
Prolonged immobility.
Certain medications or even pregnancy.
Oh, wow. So many different things.
I know, right?
Okay, so too little clotting can be just as dangerous.
It's all about balance.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of maintaining that delicate balance.
It really does.
Dr. Eldeeb also mentions a condition called purpura.
Purpura?
In her handout.
How does that fit into this whole hemostatic picture?
Purpura is interesting.
Okay.
Because it manifests as spontaneous bleeding.
Okay.
Under the skin.
Right.
Those little reddish-purple spots called petechiae.
Petechiae.
It's a sign that blood is leaking out.
Right.
Of tiny capillaries.
Okay.
And there are a few reasons why this might happen.
So it's not necessarily a problem with the clotting factors themselves?
No, not always.
But rather an issue with the blood vessels?
Exactly. Sometimes it's due to a low platelet count.
Low platelet count.
Called thrombocytopenic purpura.
Thrombocytopenic purpura.
Platelets are those tiny cell fragments that are crucial for forming clots.
Yeah.
So if you don't have enough of them, those small blood vessels become more prone to leakage.
Makes sense. Less construction material.
Exactly.
For those tiny clots means more leaks.
Yeah.
But are there cases where purpura isn't caused by low platelet counts?
Absolutely. Sometimes the platelet count is normal.
Okay.
But the platelets themselves aren't functioning properly.
Oh, okay.
Or the blood vessels are abnormally fragile.
Abnormally fragile.
It could be due to various factors.
Like what?
Certain medications,
autoimmune
disorders, or even infections.
Wow, so many different things.
I know, it's a lot.
Can disrupt this delicate balance
Yeah.
of clotting and anti-clotting.
It really emphasizes how finely tuned these systems need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does.
But if all these things can go wrong, how do doctors even begin to figure out what's causing the problem?
That's where diagnostic tests come in.
Diagnostic tests.
There are several tests that can evaluate different aspects of the clotting process, helping pinpoint the underlying cause of bleeding or clotting issues.
So like detective work.
It really is.
Trying to piece together the clues to
to
understand what's going wrong. What are some of these detective tools?
Well, one common test is called bleeding time.
Bleeding time, huh?
It's as straightforward as it sounds. They make a small incision and measure how long it takes for the bleeding to stop.
Oh, okay.
This tells them a lot about how well your platelets are functioning.
So it's a real-time assessment of how quickly your body can form that initial plug to stop the bleeding.
Exactly.
What other tests are there?
Another important one is clotting time.
Clotting time.
Which assesses the overall ability of your blood to clot.
So more of a general test?
Yeah, it's more general.
But it can reveal if there's a significant deficiency in any of the key clotting factors.
Exactly.
And if they need to investigate a specific part of the clotting cascade, are there tests for that?
Absolutely. For example, the prothrombin time test.
Prothrombin time test.
Or PT test for short.
PT test.
Is commonly used to assess the extrinsic pathway of coagulation.
Extrinsic pathway.
Which is triggered by tissue damage.
Right.
It involves adding a specific reagent to a blood sample and measuring how long it takes to clot.
So it's like a controlled experiment to see how efficiently that particular pathway is working.
Exactly.
It's incredible how these tests can provide such detailed insights into the clotting process.
It's amazing what we can do these days.
But once a diagnosis is made, what can be done to treat these hemostatic disorders?
That really depends on the specific disorder. We already talked about factor replacement therapy.
Right, for hemophilia.
Yeah. And for vitamin K deficiency. Simply supplementing with vitamin K can often resolve the bleeding problems.
Makes sense. Replenish that missing ingredient.
Right.
And the system should start working properly again.
Hopefully.
But what about those cases where the problem is excessive clotting?
Okay, so for excessive clotting, that's where anticoagulants come into play. Or blood thinners, as they're commonly known.
Right, blood thinners.
We already discussed heparin and warfarin, which can be used to prevent the formation of dangerous blood clots in people who are at risk.
So, depending on the specific disorder, the treatment might involve replacing those missing clotting factors.
Yeah, replacing factors.
Supplementing with essential vitamins or using medications to thin the blood and prevent excessive clotting.
It really is a complex field with a wide range of therapeutic options.
It certainly is.
And the field of hematology. Study of blood. It's constantly evolving.
That's it.
Researchers are working tirelessly to develop even more targeted and effective treatments
that's amazing.
for these disorders.
It's fascinating how much we've learned about this system.
I agree.
But there's still so much more to discover.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Good, I'm glad.
I've always known that blood clotting is essential.
Yeah.
But I never realized how complex and finely tuned the whole process is.
It's really remarkable.
It's like a constant balancing act. Happening inside our bodies.
All the time.
With so many different players involved. Incredible.
It really is. So, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Into the intricate world of blood clotting and hemostatic disorders.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.
We'll catch you on our next adventure into the fascinating world of science and discovery.